break out the Vegemite and throw another shrimp on the barbie, because we're finally sitting down with longtime listener and our friend from down under, Enya. You've heard her stories of flinging plums at passersby and drinking out of puddles. Now it's time to hear this little rascal's ADHD origin story. Enya is sharing how a diagnosis in her early 30s changed the way she sees herself, ways she adapted her parenting style to meet her neurodivergent children's needs, how her ADHD hyperfocus led her to a career she's endlessly passionate about, and more. Whether you're a neurodivergent smurf or a neurotypical gnome, you're sure to find something to smile about in part 1 of our conversation with Enya.
They said that we'd grow out of it. Well, the joke's on them, that's just our brains. We're eccentric, loud, and stubborn, and most of our clothing is covered in stains. It's not a deficit of attention, there's just too much to think about. So if executive dysfunction becomes a little too much, if you forgot why you came in this room, or you're hypersensitive to touch, then put on your seamless socks and come join our little flock. Bitches stimming together, we're weirds of a feather, weirds of a feather.
All right, well, let's introduce the podcast, yeah?
I think so.
All right, welcome to Weirds of a Feather, an ADHD-Adjacent podcast. I'm your host, Grace Beret.
And I'm your host, Kristen Stanhope.
And we are joined by a very special guest today. We have our friend Enya on the podcast.
Hi, I'm your special guest, Enya.
Wow, very professional.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have been dying to get you
delight
on here forever,
Right.
So thank you for finally joining us. I'm glad we could make it happen.
Yeah, and longtime listeners, you probably have already heard of Enya. She's all over the Facebook page. She's always responding to the Instagram polls, and we talk about her a bunch.
All the time.
I think we have an episode called the Enya episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, welcome. We've been wanting to have you on the show, and now we do.
I know, you're a big deal.
In the flesh, but through the phone.
Yes, virtually.
We did it. And if you keep hyping me up, I'm going to crumble inside because I have that feeling of suffocating you and your podcast. But you cover so much thought-provoking content. It's kind of hard not to compulsively reach out with opinions.
We love hearing your feedback.
We love
Don't
hearing feedback.
ever apologize.
Yeah, don't apologize.
Stop
for
it.
that. Cut that out.
Great.
Copy that.
Do you want to start us off with a warm-up question, Enya? You said you had a few. Would you like to share one?
Yeah, I got warm-up questions.
Warm
I'll try and turn these pages slowly. Beep. Is that the drill for?
Very Kristen.
Beep.
Nice.
Oh yeah, giant baby. Okay. I wrote this down in a rush, so it's lots of words and I have to trust myself to remember what I meant by them. I had one note for you guys that was just Green Gables and I will never know what I was meaning to say. So my warm-up question is, if teeny weeny animals move really fast and have really high reaction speeds, and then larger animals move slowly and have slow reaction speeds, does that mean that their brains are processing at different speeds? And then subsequently, I don't know if people will get this reference, but there's an episode of Rick and Morty where the giant incest baby gets launched into space and they come back and it helps them take down someone, I can't remember. And I was watching it and thought, so if a human got exploded up into the size of like a King Kong, because you're now giant and the amount of energy it uses to move muscles, so you're like now moving in slow motion, like you're on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Does your brain also process slower? Or if you were blown up to be that giant, do you think at the same time, at the same pace, which just feels like that nightmare where you're trying to run away from something and you can't make your legs move fast enough?
Oh.
Or would your brain slow down to compensate so you didn't live in absolute torture of thinking at this speed and then having to function at that speed?
That's a very good question. Like,
What
are they
a-
frustrated by how slowly they're moving?
Yeah. Is King Kong absolutely furious by the forces of gravity exacted on him?
He was
and
pretty
his-
nimble in the movie, so
But maybe not as nimble as he would like to be.
I'm going to say
I think, yes, their brains probably do match the speed at which they can process things because I feel like they just experience time differently, you know,
yeah.
because they're able to move faster or slower. I just feel like their perception of time is different. So maybe the King Kong thinks that he's moving super fast, but he's just moving fast for a King Kong.
And also, I guess that
Mm.
like on a molecular, because if you think about like your neurons and how they're firing, does that mean each individual neuron and atom is bigger in size? Or maybe when you're bigger, you must have more neurons. So that's like a better, more chain reactions to get the same stimulus or response.
Hmm.
You know, are the neurons growing in size, or is it more neurons?
More questions?
Yeah,
on top
that's
of
my
questions?
question.
Yeah. I don't have an exact answer for you, unfortunately. I know this is just to ponder, but
Well, if anyone has experienced, I suppose, being, what's the opposite of shrunk? Expanded to the size of the giant incest baby from Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
And can provide
listeners out there,
a
let
better
us know.
answer to that question.
Please,
let us know
if
how
you've been
that
expanded
happened.
or shrunk. Because then if you're shrunken down, like George Shrinks or
Honey, I Shrunk
the Kids, yeah, are their brains just like moving faster than they've ever experienced before?
Right.
Or is it relative to their
and
size?
then like, are the actual cells in their body smaller?
They would have to be.
They would have
Yeah,
to be.
I don't know. It seems, how much do cells vary in size?
I think it depends
on the regular
cell, but
they can't be that much, you know?
Right.
I feel like, they probably, when you expand, I think the space that they have to travel just expands also, but I don't know. They must expand with you. That's a good question, Enya.
But then,
because I feel like if you were shrunk, you'd have to be able to move faster. Because everything, well, there's that sweet spot in Earth's animals where like the smallest and the biggest animals are slower than the medium-sized animals, like humans and cheetahs and
like
stuff.
the small
like the medium
animals
ones
are
are the
physically
fastest.
smaller, and the big animals are big and slow. Because it's a lot of energy.
But I feel like if I was the size of a drink bottle, I'd run like super fast. In my head, if I'm that size, I can also jump higher as well, like a grasshopper, just like 1,000 times
but it's all
higher than I
relative
can
to size,
jump right
though,
now.
right? Like, because isn't the flea to body size the highest jumper in the world? But they're still not going to jump higher than like a kangaroo because they're small.
So if we got shrunk, we could still only jump like not higher than our own shoulders.
Yeah.
So we'd just be stuck on the floor. That's a bummer.
I know.
Yeah, I
like, what's the
know.
point? You know, why
I guess we'll
even
stay
do
the
it?
same size.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, might as well just carry on being human sized.
Unfortunately, I think that's our best choice.
Right. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful
warm-up question.
Enya.
That was way better than the one I had.
That was involved.
Yeah, that was involved. I gotta step up my game on these warm-up questions. Holy moly. It's a thinker.
You're doing just fine.
That's a thinker.
That is a thinker.
I know. I love your warm-up questions. Sometimes I'm like, this just warm-up question is an episode.
Right?
They should just call it here.
And that's the problem.
Take a day off.
We get carried away sometimes.
I do like the warm-up questions, but they do cause a problem sometimes.
All right. Well, I think with that, we should get into our first seg, which is Little Accomplishments.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this will involve us singing at what will end up probably being different times because of the lag.
I'm really confident about this.
If anything, it's really funny for the listener. So
it's really funny. It's going to be great.
We could attempt, you guys sing it, and then I'll count to 2, and I'll just echo the last line, so I sound like a backup singer. You want to try that?
Yeah, let's do
Oh,
it.
that's cool.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So you sing it and I'll,
All right, I'll do a countdown for us. Okay.
Little accomplishments, but big in our hearts.
big in our hearts, 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 hearts.
Oh, I like that.
That was a
With
good
the
effect.
echo. That's lovely.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, hopefully that's not too painful to edit. Oh, that's Christopher editing now.
Yep.
Yeah.
My man,
He'll deal with it.
legend.
He'll be fine.
Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah.
I love his episodes. I was just like, oh, this guy knows what's up with wild brains.
Oh, yeah, he wants to talk to you. I think
Yeah.
I was supposed to put you two in contact, and I never
Yeah.
did because you both had a lot of questions and responses to each
Yeah.
other.
Get ready for some really long text messages, and yeah, he'll chat your ear
Yeah,
off.
I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you his number.
Yeah, you
He
guys
has
have a lot to chat
say.
about.
He has
Yeah.
a lot to say.
He does.
Not right now on
Oh,
the,
no.
on the
Let me just
podcast.
shout out his number so
Yeah.
everybody can hear.
Read it off.
Yeah. 555.
Everybody get a pen. That's another one of
Oh.
my favorite Kristen phrases.
Get a pen.
Everybody get a pen. No, I won't give
yeah.
out his number publicly. I don't know if he'd really like that. He'd
He
probably
might.
make a friend. Yeah. I'm sure he
Game of friends. Yeah.
Yeah. But and
You want me to start with a little accomplishment?
Yeah, lead us off.
I got a little plish. I lost my prescription sunnies, which are a critical tool of mine, particularly for driving, for about 3 weeks, and I found them
Woohoo!
3 days ago.
Where were they?
And I turned the house upside down, and my little smurflings were devotedly helping me look for them for a very long time because we kept getting in the car and I was driving with my eyes all squished up, and one of them was very concerned about our safety.
As they should.
And yeah, they were simply in a different pocket in my backpack, which I've never put them in before.
Isn't that always the way
and
it's
never check.
You're like, oh, this will be a great place to store these. And
I'll
then-
remember.
Yeah, I'll remember. And then you never do.
Oh, I think I couldn't reach my backpack properly at the time. I was doing an Inspector Gadget thing through the back of my car, and so I just crammed it into the thing I felt, and then, paid for that for several weeks.
Yeah.
But I found them, and it feels like a big win. It feels like a really big win because I don't have time to go to the optometrist and get new ones, and I don't have spares.
You can't see well enough to get there anyways, so it's probably good that you found them.
You need to get those ones
I'll have
that like flip down. They like clip on, and you can flip them up and flip them down.
No, you don't need to get
Very-
those.
My grandfather had those.
Exactly.
They like
While I think that they would be dope to roll around with, I think that that's a whole other thing I could lose.
yeah, very true.
I already tend to use my glasses chains have been a game changer for me. Just being able to like drop the glasses onto my chest instead of putting them down anyway. Game changer. Yeah.
That's what I need.
That is a great idea.
Little chain.
Yeah. They get a bit tangly. I don't know, Grace, if you'd find them too. They kind of ding against your cheeks sometimes. If you get them on chains.
You crochet.
The fabric ones are better.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Hobby.
Chain.
New hobby alert.
Yeah, I still think I'd be bothered by it. I mean, even just like having my hair down, I'm just like constantly touching it over and over and over. So I don't know if I can handle it, but I might try it out.
That's exciting.
Maybe I'll send you one. I really got onto buying great glasses chains off Etsy. I was like, I just know that there are going to be particularly mothers out there sitting at home just making things to sell to make a bit of cash and relieve their creative juices that will be making way cooler glasses chains than I can buy from a chemist or anything.
Oh yeah.
And turns out my instincts were correct.
Nice.
There are many people making them.
I gotta look for these.
I know.
This is.
I have to check that out.
I like forgot that glasses chains existed. Like you were like I knew that they existed, but I forgot that they were a thing that we could buy.
Yeah, you could just buy them. You could just have
buy
them.
it. You could just have them.
And they're very satisfying to your inner 80-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like it's I'm bringing them back.
You're making them stylish again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations. I'm proud of you for finding those glasses. And what an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gross. Do you have a little accomplishment?
I do. Me and Ian, we put up our Christmas tree, which I'm proud of because normally we wait like way too long and that's like you have it for a week and that sucks. So we put up our Christmas tree, hung our lights, hung all our decor. We have a traditional mitten Christmas tree topper that we
Nice.
started doing years ago, and now that's our Christmas topper. So we have the traditional mitten atop the tree, and it's nice and cozy, and I'm psyched about it.
Is it one mitten or is it a changing mitten? I'm finding it. Could you please use some rich descriptive language here?
It is a fabric knitted mitten, as if a child would wear it uponst his hand. It's white and red striped with a white fuzzy cuff. I think we found it at Goodwill, early on when we started to date, and we had no money, and we said, this will make do for a Christmas tree topper, and it kind of became a tradition, so now we use it every year, making it a thing.
Nice.
Maybe I'll post a picture.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it seems much safer to hang than stars. Every time I see someone place the star on top of the tree, all I can think is like that it's like a throwing star just destined to come.
Yeah.
Crack.
Just jab an eye out on the way up. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that. This mitten would drift safely down atop your head. So yeah, that was my accomplishment.
Nice.
Nice.
Christopher made us what was supposed to look like a biblically accurate angel for the top of our tree. So it's like one of those balls with all the googly eyes and everything. And it's, he kind of ran out of white feathers, red feathers in there. And, and half the eyes came off. And it's really just like, I'm sorry, Christopher, it's beautifully awful. And,
monstrous, maybe?
It's truly almost horrific, one would describe it. I'll post a picture of that one too.
Please.
That's what we have on our Christmas tree.
The words biblically accurate
so
make it so much harder for me to imagine what this angel
you gotta look
like.
it up. Apparently, biblically accurate angels are like balls with a bunch of eyes and feathers everywhere. They look horrifying. And all these like cute people on Etsy were like, let's make biblically accurate angels, and they're like cute and fuzzy, and then Christopher's like, let me give this a go. And
of course his is horrifying.
His is kind of in the
man after my own heart.
I'll post a picture. It's pretty funny. It's also our cat.
Can you please post a picture?
Yeah, it's our cat's
so
new favorite toy, because we haven't put it up yet because we're having our cats keep attacking our tree, so I haven't put any ornaments up yet. It's been a struggle, but once it's up there, I'll put a picture of it. Yeah,
please.
How does your cat with no claws attack things?
Oh, it's the other ones with the claws. She kind of just will like nub you.
Wait, how many cats do you have now?
3.
Too many.
Yeah, it's probably way too many. We have Snickers with no claws, and she'll just kind of like nub you. And then and she came with no claws.
Oh, we call that papping in this house.
Yeah,
it's a pap.
Yeah. Yeah, the other ones will actually like.
Yeah.
The middle child, he's a sweet boy, and just wants cuddles, and we love him. And then the youngest one is I love him, but he is
a terror.
He is a menace. Yeah, he's a terror to the household, and will not stop attacking the Christmas tree or any of the ornaments. And so all of our ornaments are fuzzy or they're bells. So
that's on you.
Well, we can tell when
I was just going to say, it feels like you've walked right into it. How old is your terror cat?
He is like 1. So.
Oh, okay. So he's full in Velociraptor phase.
Yeah. And he'll come out of it. He's going to be a very cuddly cat in like 2 years. We just have to like get through this phase and. Yeah, but he's pretty much holding up the entire household at hostage right now with
Oh yeah, through behavior. I'm familiar with the technique.
He's
controlling a household through behavior.
Pretty much. I did teach him to sit the other day though. He's very food focused, which is great. But now he knows where the treats are, so he can open the cabinets. So that's not great. So we'll get there.
I think that's the first story I've ever heard someone tell about a pet that actually compares to human babies.
Because
I feel really rude because anytime someone's like talks about their dog or cat, like, oh, and he sleeps through the night and stuff, I go, I'm very happy for you.
Yeah. My
that he's a sleeper. But yeah, getting into the cabinets,
yeah.
there's nothing more terrifying than when your baby works out how to stack furniture to then reach things in the higher shelves, which can sometimes happen before they learn how to walk. It's if you've got
that is
smurflings.
terrifying.
And then you got a nephew knife fight on your hands.
Yeah,
Next thing you know.
Classic nephew knife fight. Yeah, it's all over from there.
Yep.
We learned that one the hard way.
Yep. All right, Kristen, what did you accomplish?
I did a big thing. So
no, stop apologizing. Don't you dare.
No apologies here.
Thank you.
Every 2 years I have to get, for my medical license, I have to get like 100 credits of continuous learning education. And every 2 years I save it for the last minute because that's just kind of the way I roll. And I just finished all my education. So I would say I'm ahead of schedule because it's not the end of the year yet. They're due at the end of the year. So.
You are. You're way ahead of schedule.
I know. I was telling my coworker this. I was like, yeah, I'm actually ahead of schedule. And they're like, I had mine done months ago. And I was like, well, that's you.
Our versions of ahead of schedule are not
ahead
the
of
same.
schedule. Yeah.
Classic gnome behavior.
Yeah, it's just be happy for me that can still legally be employed right now. So.
If I did it the day before, I would consider that ahead of schedule.
Right. I even had they were like
feeling like that's a big push.
Yeah, that's a big push.
Yeah, that's a massive push. Congratulations. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Such a weight off my shoulders. Because of course it's the end of the year, so you're like struggling. You've got like planning for holidays and all that stuff, and then you're like, here's like a really big thing on top of everything. So
good job.
Yeah. Yay.
All right. Well, now finally,
we got to get into it.
Get ready, Enya. We're getting into it.
Yeah.
Because we want to hear about your ADHD journey, whether you want to tell us or not. You're going to. So.
Yeah.
I don't want to start you off with a super vague question.
Like, what's your deal?
Yeah, like, what's your deal?
What's your deal?
But...
Oh, no. Actually, that kind of open-ended question I can respond to.
Okay.
But I've interrupted you again. Grace, please finish.
Without further ado, what's your deal?
Yeah. What's your deal?
Okay. My deal is... cue the mouth agape.
My name is Enya. I'm a self-declared mega fan of Grace and Kristen's Weirds of a Feather podcast, who has been relentlessly sending them whack ADHD stories for a while now. And I'm lucky enough, I think, to call them friends. Even in light of the fact that I tried to post Grace and Echidna Skull a little while back, but customs intervened. They still take me, and for that I'm grateful. I'm stoked to have been invited on as a guest, but have been dealing with a mighty, mighty thunderstorm, which has led to blackouts and technical issues, and subsequently, this little intro. I live on Kangaroo Island in South Australia, where I study from home while I care for my two brilliant children. I love surfing, building and repairing things from scrap materials, lived off-grid for many years until recently, and I'm helplessly addicted to stand-up comedy. I was diagnosed with ADHD in my early 30s, which was no surprise to anyone close to me as it turns out. And receiving treatment for my ADHD and learning to understand my brain has given me a comfort and grace beyond my expectations. I've just finished my honours thesis in hydrodynamic thresholds for seagrass restoration, and will expand that research through a PhD beginning in early 2024. I'm deeply enamoured with my research because seagrass is a big hitter when it comes to climate change adaptation strategies. Did you know it captures twice as much carbon as a tropical rainforest, but does it 35 times faster? It's very cool stuff, and if you ask me about it, I'll info dump the crap out of it. So thanks so much, Grace and Kristen, for having me. You guys kick some serious ass, and I will never, ever, ever stop listening, my sisters. Anyway.
I suppose I sort of knew from a point in high school that ADHD made sense for me. I remember hearing the description, and I had a friend who I thought at the time had ADHD, but I reconnected with him recently. He was like, I don't have ADHD. So somehow he just had his hands on ADHD medication. I don't know. He was a skater.
Makes
also
sense.
quite
Checks out.
not always showing up to school like me. And he lived in a house across the road from the school, so it was a perfect hangout for wagging. I don't know what the word is in America. Wagging, skipping school,
Cutting class.
Yeah, ditching.
ditching, cutting. Yeah, we call it wagging.
I like.
So we would just like sneak across the road to his house to do naughty teenager things like smoke cigarettes.
Ooh,
and he one afternoon, I know, one afternoon he gave everyone these ADHD pills, like the what's the fast release one? Dexamphetamines. We call them Dexies. And I was convinced that this beep, 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 had stitched me up and given me a sugar pill as a joke, because I was like, well, this has done nothing, and just like sat on the couch and watched everyone else have fun.
This makes me want to go back to school.
I feel like I need to learn things.
Yeah. Just really want to pay attention all of a sudden.
No, I think I just like listened to everyone else for once instead of like dominating the dynamic through verbal diarrhea. So there was that. And then, yes, I had 2 little smurflings of my own at the fresh age of 21, which I don't feel is super young, but is younger than average in Australia. And they were just full of beans from the word go. Their names were colloquially Hurricane Smurf and Cyclone Smurf. And I remember, energetic weather. I remember feeling upset often when in the preschool years that other parents were saying things like, oh, don't you just love them when they're this age, and the years go so fast, and cherish every moment because you'll never get it back. And I just felt like I was that. Have you ever seen that meme and it's captioned, how's it going? And it's just a photo of 2 arms coming out of quicksand with the thumbs up. Yeah. I feel like that was 7 years straight of my life where I'm like, oh, good, nothing to see here. Yes, I feel the same as you. I'm not perpetually overwhelmed and terrified. And the other thing that really got me was that other parents seemed to be able to not supervise their children at all times. And I couldn't understand why. Like, I would be at a friend's house and I'd be like, oh, like, where's little gnome? And that friend would say, oh, like, she's just out the back playing. And I was like, and you don't have to have eyes on her at all? And she's like, yeah, what's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I can already hear the police sirens. Like, how is not? So like, I'm panicking for their children who don't need, because my children would immediately be on the roof, or they will find, the nephew knife fight. I was at a party once and we had to leave early because a little smurfling had found a knife and was just running around hysterically laughing, not threatening anyone, but just having fun. Knives are exciting. I don't know. So yeah, once they were in, my little smurflings were in kindergarten and school, and just relentless phone calls and feedback from educators and caregivers that something was a little bit more swivelly with them than other kids. I kind of worked it out, took them to a general practitioner who looked at me like I was crazy and said they were too young, and sent me on my way. So that set me back 3 or 4 years.
Bouncing deep.
And then
move along.
Yes. Yeah. So, it was a struggle, but it's really tricky because for me, I love my little smurfs for everything they are. Like, they're phenomenal smurflings in every way. They're so funny. They're so clever.
They are.
They're so full of joy when they're happy. And, you raise them to be critical thinkers and to see things from lots of different perspectives. And then those aspects of a person that I really cherish can get them in a lot of trouble at school. And then you're sort of like, well, this is my fault. And then how do I help you? And then you feel horrible sending them to this place every day that they just, ultimately can end up hating if things get really bad. Eventually worked it out and was like, no, I'm right. This explains everything. And then got onto a little pamphlet that was like, what does ADHD look like in women? And it was like 8 dot points, and it was like bing, 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 bing. And I went, uh-oh. And then I cried for about 6 hours, and then forgot about it for about a year.
Of course you did.
And then
So ADHD. This life-changing realization. Then on to the next.
Yeah.
And we're moving on.
And then, down the track, just got to a few points. I was just having episodic burnout about every 6 weeks and was just like, I just really need help. And, maybe it's that ADHD thing. And there was still a bit of umming and ahhing about whether to get a diagnosis for the children at that point, because it felt a bit young and still felt like this could be within regular variability of development and everything. So I went, I'll just go and get myself sorted first. Got onto an amazing psychiatrist who is a professor and who only diagnoses because he's very passionate about barriers to people getting a diagnosis. So he only treats rural patients online, and for adult ADHD and gender affirming therapy, I think are the only 2 he does.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And he clocked it straight away. I did the little quiz, smashed that, 110%.
Oh, yeah, knocked it out of the park.
And which was an interesting process, actually, because I thought of myself as getting quite good grades in school, but to get a diagnosis in Australia, you have to produce your entire school record. So you have to apply to the state who have a record of it. And I was looking through and I was like, damn, I did not have good grades at all. I think I was just getting like verbal feedback that I was intelligent, but not necessarily doing anything with it. And it was very variable. So I'm like, in some topics I would get A plus or whatever. In other topics I always passed. I didn't want to have to show a non-pass report to Mama and Papa Smurf. But it was just one of this like, oh, that is not how I remember things at all.
It's interesting.
But it's what happened. Yeah, I think I was just a typical one for racing through the work in 5 minutes and then having the rest of the class on my hands. And then I don't know if it's gendered or if it's environmental or whatever, but I compensated for that by becoming like a massive teacher's helper. So I was always like, you got errands, you need something cleaned. I don't care if I'm just like sorting out the school drawers, but I knew that if I was just sitting there at my desk, I was either going to get in trouble for talking or get given more work, which felt like a punishment for doing the work. And then those would lead me down the path of getting put at the front of the class and blah, blah, blah. So I was just I just volunteered for everything and took on every role that I could so I could be like out of my seat, out of the classroom as much as possible. Not that I was aware of it at the time. At the time, I was just doing my thing.
That's a good strategy, though, to keep yourself out of trouble, because I did not do that, and I would just talk and get in trouble.
Yeah,
so
you got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, probably should have done that instead.
I still got in lots of trouble, but I think I had most teachers on side pretty early. But yeah, I think when I was looking at those grades, I was like, oh, these are pretty well correlated with like how much I liked the teacher.
Yep. Yeah.
At the time.
Yep, that was my exact experience too. If I did not like them, I wasn't going to put in effort,
right?
If I didn't feel like they respected me.
Yeah, or if the thing that really got me offside was I'm from a really large family, and in some schools, older Smurfs had come before me, and built certain reputations. And then so I would meet a teacher for the first time and they'd go, you're a chitty, right? You sit over here, and you just feel like, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's on.
I'll show you.
I will.
Make sure to keep up
Yeah.
reputation.
Yeah.
I will be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
They asked
and
for
prove
it.
you right.
Yeah. You showed them.
Yeah. By making my own life harder. Woo! Yeah. But yeah, I think the biggest thing about getting an ADHD diagnosis is I really thought that I was in control of my own destiny my whole life, making my own choices, like rebel with a cause and all of that. And then you get the diagnosis, and then you start to hear stories from other people and the stereotypes and everything. And then you're just like, whoa, I was not making my own decisions at all. I've just been a slave to this condition. So there's a bit of an identity stripping there, I think, when you're coming to terms with it.
Absolutely.
I thought it was really interesting that you said specifically it was like felt like you were like a slave to the condition. And I was hoping maybe you could just like elaborate on that. Like, we always talk about how our whole podcast is based on how it's like absolutely debilitating, but are there things more specific you can elaborate on that are more debilitating or strugglesome, which is not a word. Strugglesome.
Should be a word.
It sounds like it almost could be.
It's a Christianism.
No, I think that's a valid word. 100%.
I think I'll write a letter to the dictionary.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm still waiting for you to make the little book of Christianisms.
We should.
Because I think you forget, because maybe you don't listen back on your episodes.
No.
Well, I forget until you remind me, and I'm like, that was Grace that said that, and then I'll listen back, and I'm like, oh no, that was my...
If it's a weird saying, it's probably you.
But for some reason in my head, I think that it's always you.
No, it's you.
But, yeah. But yeah, struggles. What is the most strugglesome parts that you feel like with your specific brand of ADHD?
Yeah, or how was it like leading your life more than you realize, like the impulsivity aspect of it?
I think really the what is recorded as opposition, which I don't know how controversial this might be to say, but I'm not totally sold on oppositional defiance disorder being a real thing.
Same. I think it's probably PDA often.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm convinced PDA is a real thing. I wonder how much it's... I don't know. Anyway, I'm not a professional in this area.
Well, I think it's more,
but what I do see,
more a nervous system reaction than like a cognitive decision to go against the grain or not do what you're told. It's like your nervous system is having this reaction. And I think we talk about it as if just defiance or opposition for the sake of being oppositional. And I think it's way more complex than we pretend like it is.
It is. And I think that, I don't know, I think there's a lot of crappy parenting advice out there in this, really wonderful attempt to overcorrect for our ignorance and lack of respect for diversity in the past. But I think that how these traits are responded to and that environmental feedback, I think it's really easy to then call something a condition when it's like, my hunch is that a lot of those behaviors would change if the people and the environments around those people were modified. But again, I'm not a medical professional, and I really don't want to deny anyone's reality or what they're living and experiencing. That's not where I'm coming from at all. It's just something that I still have there, and I'm like, I still haven't been sold on it, but yeah, I don't have the level.
I think
of
we talked about
cool
in our, was it the sensory episode? How we talked about, I think we ended up shouting about it.
Sure we did.
We talked about specifically with oppositional defiance disorder. There was a study done that showed that their symptoms or their traits of oppositional defiance disorder improved when you
stop demanding things of them?
Well, when
that
you
they didn't wanna
met their
do?
sensory needs, I
Mm.
believe it's either that or it's exercise, and I can't remember. But basically, it's like when you meet their needs, they're these, like, I guess, bothersome
More
to you
cooperative.
traits
Mm.
are less.
Wow.
And you're like, wow, I can't believe
Groundbreaking stuff.
groundbreaking stuff. When you meet some basic needs, they improve.
Yeah, I just think the environment that we're all in is so unnatural, and especially for ADHDers and autistic people, it's like just so the structure that we've created of society is so unnatural and so difficult for so many people that is it a disorder or is it just a response to this highly structured environment
Right.
that doesn't work for a lot of
Right.
people?
Which
Yeah. And sometimes I'll feel that I if I'm struggling with a conversation, just changing that environment, just having that conversation outside can help a lot. Or just changing the angle at which I'm speaking with someone can really help to like let thoughts flow. A big one for closing my eyes when I'm trying to construct the sentence
Me too.
of the way I want to communicate, just because I need to write it out in my head. I think I'm a very visual ADHDer.
Can you
Highly verbal.
visualize?
Definitely have the what's the thing where the words go in
Auditory processing
and then you can't. That one. Bingo.
Yep.
5 points for Grace. Definitely have that one when it comes to if someone's describing just instructions, if I'm not regulated at the time or whatever, but a description of something that I haven't seen before, I need to really close my eyes and take that extra time to build that picture in my mind to understand what someone's trying to say to me. Where I struggle heaps is when people try and give instructions, but they don't use like labels for the tools or whatever's involved. And they're like, oh, you get the thing and then it goes over there like this. And I'm just sitting there going, I've got no idea what you're talking about. And you're going to have to show me exactly how it's done, because these words are just like, it's like you're speaking French. I can visualize. I think I'm highly dependent on visualization. I'll often be test running possible future outcomes of a task or something in my mind while I'm doing the thing. But also music helps. So with the processing issues, if someone can sing it to me, I'm sweet.
Really?
But it's that, if it comes across. I remember there was an episode you were talking about, if you hear a cover of a song, you still can only sing along with the original melody.
Yes.
Is that you?
I think Christopher and I were
I have kind of, maybe it was a Christopher episode. I have kind of the opposite, where every time I hear a cover of a song, I get really excited because it's like a new flavor of something that I know and love. And I love hearing the different interpretations and expressions because every song is a story.
I wonder if that's like AuDHD versus ADHD, where you're psyched to have a new version of this thing, where I'm like, no, it has to be exactly this. I want it to be the same every single time. This is what my brain knows. That's what it has to be.
Yeah, I don't know, but I never get bored of, there are some samples from classic songs that were written in the 50s, 60s, 70s that get used again and again and again, and people don't realize they're listening to it, but I can't not hear it. Even if it's just a grab, like a lot of those really cool producers from the 90s and early 2000s, they used heaps of sampling in songs like Beastie Boys were big for one, and Fatboy Slim did it a lot. And I can hear the original song, but I'm so thrilled to hear the new version.
Yeah.
But then it was one of those things I didn't realize other people weren't picking up on. Sometimes it's like they'll take 3 grabs from a song and beat them together in a round, stitch them together in a round to make a new song, but I can still hear the original song as well. Do you have that?
Yes, I pick up on them, but then I have to go listen to the original because I noticed I hear the pattern, but then I'm annoyed and I have to go listen to the original now. So like almost like it feels what I imagine OCD can feel like to people in a certain way, where it's like I can't stop. My brain like has to have the satisfaction
You're,
to like level back
compelled
out.
to do it.
Yes, I have to hear it, and I can't move on until I do.
Do you find like
Yeah, because you've smelt the frying bacon and your stomach's rumbling.
Yeah.
What, now you're just going to not eat the bacon sandwich?
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely
so
not.
you have like this like highly visual brain. Do you feel like because I know you just turned in your thesis, which is huge. Do you feel like in like developing your thesis or even in your day-to-day life, do you think that your visual brain hinders or helps you on most days? Or do you like not notice because it's the brain you've been given and you've always had this brain?
That's a big question.
You mean like how Christopher gets like, stuck, like carried away with the visual stuff where it's like too much?
Yeah, like almost too much, where he can kind of like, I don't know, float away with the visuals, but then also it makes him a more creative thinker when it comes to problem solving because he can see how things are going to come out in his head. So I think with him, it can hinder him in some ways, but very helpful in other ways.
I can't think of a scenario where it's hindered me, to be honest.
It sounds like
I guess,
like I wish.
Yeah, sounds like a good strength.
It sounds like it would be great.
yeah, I can see how it's impacted me. So part of probably what I should have said earlier was I come from a very large family of Smurfs who,
And by Smurfs,
we were
you mean
raised.
neurodivergent people, right?
I do,
Okay.
yes. Sorry, I should have. Did we clarify that earlier?
I don't know if we were recording or not, or I don't know.
Let's
We've
clarify.
talked about a
Let's
lot.
clarify it now. Yeah.
Mama and Papa Smurf, very alternative. So you're raised in this culture, a home culture where diversity is like accepted and celebrated, but it's not even intentional because I'm one of 5 children and you couldn't get 5 more different people, truly. Like it just goes to show that you're born who you are, and environment maybe impacts it maybe 20-30% tops. But there was we were raised like vegetarian, we were raised in the Mormon faith, which Mama and Papa Smurf were both very I think understanding when each of us parted with that faith at a young age. And they are like the stereotypical 70s hippie babies. They lived in a combi van. They like to party, and as such, we all like to party. And then, so part of that, you think you're making your own decisions, but the ADHD was ultimately probably controlling that, was that I dropped out of high school in my final year. I think you guys have different names for it. We just call it year 12.
Yeah, senior year. Same.
Yeah. At the time, I thought it was a decision I was making because it's higher education is very expensive in Australia, and ultimately, it's really difficult to afford higher education if you aren't able to live with your parents. I grew up in a house with a policy where you move out when you're 18. So in my head, I was like, well, higher education is not an option for me right now. So what am I doing here? So I went and got a secret job and was like putting on my school uniform every morning. driving one of my Smurfs to school, showing up to get signed off on the roll, and then getting changed into a work uniform and going and working, and then like coming up for pickup. So I didn't finish year 12, and then that also coincided with I worked in community radio from when I was about the age of 15. So once I had radio and I decided that, probably higher education wasn't an option, I just wanted to make money and have fun and have financial security. Yeah, I ran amok, and then after I had Smurflings, no one would hire me anymore, even though I had a really good formal career in home loan settlements and baking and radio and all sorts of, I guess, like higher level admin jobs. No one would hire me anymore. And I was like, well, this is the pits. I'll go back and get that education now. So I there's there's lots of different pathways into higher education in Australia, though, for adult entry students. And so you can either sit a test or you can do like a short course, which picks up where you would have ended up in year 12, just teaching you like referencing and the research process and everything. I was really surprised too. I got, again, I think your scores are some sort of system where you can get anywhere from 0 to like 3,000 or something. SAT scores. Is that an
Oh, yeah, we do have the
American
SATs.
America.
I think we're back to 1,600 is the highest.
I thought for us it was like 2,300.
For us it was, and then they went back to the other
1,600.
system for some reason.
I mean, it just seems like such an arbitrary number, but
It's nothing.
anyway.
It's meaningless.
Yeah.
So in Australia, it's just 0 to 100, and I was very lucky to have gotten I don't really know how I pulled it off, but a 97.5.
Yay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I think they've mixed my scores up, but they hadn't. And then so I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm not dumb. And then that grade meant that I could get automatic entry into like any course across the country in any university.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how I pulled this off. And then, yeah, and then so chose coastal science because I was like, well, how do I get a job that ensures that I will probably eventually get paid to travel the world's beaches? That was the dream. Did that, and then a lot of coastal. So coastal is in Earth system science. Earth system science uses heaps of mapping and heaps of 3 and 4 dimensional modeling. So I kind of accidentally, but it's also awesome, have ended up in a field where you need to be highly visual, and you're using.
That sounds perfect for you.
Yeah, and also that it's this great field where you're either out measuring and observing real phenomena, usually on the beach or on a boat, which is fun, or you're at home at your computer and you're modeling it, and you're trying to recreate as close a representation of those true processes as you can, not just visually, but we use sort of 3 and 4 dimensional mapping. So it'll be a 3D model, and then you'll stack it through time. So looking at time series, because it's all based on processes. There's never that. I guess like if you were in the biology field, for example, you would have a specimen that is there and it's labeled and it's in your glass case or whatever, and that's that representative sample of the thing you study. But in Earth system stuff, there's no such thing as like that photo sample specimen. Everything is a process that's interrelated. It's all feedback loops that are always changing. It's really dynamic. So you really need to be able to think in this 4-dimensional space at all times. When you're describing something, it's always within the context of that it's not fixed, and all of the different forces that come together to impact those processes. You can't take 1 or 2 things out of the system and test them the way a lot of traditional science operates, because you remove it from the system and then you lose all the complexities of nature.
That sounds complicated.
That does sound complicated.
You got quite the brain.
I'm going to need a drawing.
It is not as complicated as it sounds. It's a lot of fluff.
As
a lot of science is.
Yes.
It's a lot of long words.
So someone who got a 97 out of 100 on their giant exam.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like the standards were low. Like they wanted to get.
I feel like that's like
adult entry students in.
Yeah, that's imposter phenomenon, my guy.
You're a smart cookie, as my
Say
aunt.
it.
I'm a smart cookie.
Smart cookie.
Smart cookie. That's why my aunt calls us smart cookies.
Yes. Smart cookie. I cannot do the accent properly. I forgot to request at the beginning that if I told any stories that horrified you, Kristen, can you please reprimand me in your mother's voice?
You got it.
Yes. Yeah.
Not never.
Not never.
I'm so pleased. Do you know we had it written on the microwave on a sticker? Not never.
Oh my god, I haven't even
Because
told
my
my
smirk.
mom that I imitate her. I don't know if she would find that really flattering.
It's very accurate. It's not
she's
really an exaggeration.
No, she
it's
is
pretty accurate.
She is a character.
But it's not like you're imitating her in the style of like the nanny, like Fran Drescher's mom.
She was a great mom, and she still is, and she's just
She's a character.
She's a character. She's a fierce mother.
Yeah,
So that's what I would call her. She's like,
I'm already in love with her.
She's great.
Sorry, I just realized I didn't even answer your question. So I promise I'll make this quick because I keep tangenting.
No, it's okay.
This is why text is better for me and Grace, because I can't be bothered writing too much, so I like condense it. I think my biggest struggles on my working memory is absolute dog balls. And the way I describe it to other people is, that sensation when you walk into a room and you can't remember what you went in there for? That's my life all day, every day.
Mm.
And that was one of those things that helped me understand that it was ADHD, because I thought everyone was having that experience 100 times a day as well. And then finding out that was happening once a month was a game changer.
And didn't you say it made you kind of worried that you had like early onset dementia or something before you realized it was ADHD?
Yeah, I was pretty worried. I really related to Jamie's episode where she was talking about just being like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. Because so long as I was just working or just parenting or just doing a project, I was fine and functioned pretty well. But as I got older and my family got older and life got more complex, and then hormones, like I don't know what they did when I was 29, but that just all went blah. And then once I started studying, I wasn't able to, I've always managed to have really physically active jobs by accident, which another one of those ADHD was probably making the call there, and I didn't realize. Once I was trying to sit down in front of a computer so much all day, every day, studying, those ADHD traits really started to surface, and I was struggling a lot. So I had, after I got the diagnosis, I was recommended OT, and the first appointment was like a quiz on my struggles. The second appointment was practical strategies, and we went through and everything that this OT suggested I was already doing, and I had managed to develop general strategies for everything without realizing there were strategies.
What, like,
already?
Do you have an example?
Yeah, so tracking my hormones, because I knew that I couldn't think from 5 days before getting my moon bloods, which I called the brain splash, and then knowing that the day before and the day of my moon blood arriving, that I wouldn't be able to think, like quite profoundly. Like I could perform basic tasks, but like I love puzzles in any shape or form. But if you put a puzzle in front of me on that day, I can't even like register what I'm seeing. It's really profound. And then I also knew that, during that middle time of the month when I was ovulating, I just seemed to be able to kick all these goals. And so not realizing, I guess, at that point that was enhanced by ADHD. I was already trying to plan important things for that middle section. I wouldn't have any important conversations with loved ones or anything between the brain splash and the moon blood. And yeah, during peak ovulation was when I was trying to plan like any big meetings I had and that sort of thing. So strategies
because Grace, you've kind of talked about that a little bit.
With my PMDD,
right,
and endometriosis,
just
me up.
Kind of, or we just talked about like one of like a huge disadvantage to being a woman in a man's world is that you were on a 28-day cycle, whereas the men.
If you're someone who menstruates,
you're on a 28-day cycle, whereas if you're someone who doesn't menstruate, you're on a 24-hour cycle. But the world is fixed to be on a 24-hour cycle. So how, we're just set up for failure.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? I think that there is always as much good as there is bad in these differences, because like I listened to a podcast by a neurologist recently, and she was talking about how women's brains like literally are better.
Yeah.
They oh, that's a cheeky smile. It's true though. The parts of the brain that are responsible for problem solving, long-term memory, empathy, and planning and everything are bigger in the female brain. But then the catch is that hormones really profoundly affect our brains. So during that ovulation period, like, so men's brains are functioning at the same consistent level, more or less. I mean, they do have that daily cycle, and men's brains legitimately crash at about 4 o'clock every afternoon. And that can be a really wonderful thing to know about your loved ones, right? Like, don't come at them at 4 p.m. Like, let them get through that dip and they'll be receptive by 6 p.m. This is a simple way to accommodate anyone, smurf or gnome. And then, but with women, we've got this sort of 10 days of the month where we're functioning at like, I can't remember what it was, but it's something like 150% of the capacity of a male brain. But then we also have this like 10 days of the month where we are operating at 70% capacity or less.
Oh my God.
Really?
Because those hormones are impacting our brains that much. So our brains are better, but only like a quarter of the time.
So if you can hack it, you can make it work for you. But if you don't know what's going on, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, feeling shitty some weeks. I need to track my moon blood better.
Same.
I feel like it's so inconsistent that I just am flying by the seat of my pants all the time. But I should learn how to work.
Yeah, I can't imagine the curveball that endometriosis just throws into everything. In my head, that is like, you ever had someone stick a stick into the spokes of your bike?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And it gets jammed. That's how
fly over the
that feels in my brain when you describe
That's
it.
exactly how it
so
feels.
brutal.
Especially because when I ovulate, I'm like, I must have cured myself somehow.
got it.
This is
Nailed
how I'm
it.
going to feel forever now. I'm feeling good. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And the crash comes a few days later. I'm like, what? Who could have foreseen this?
Bum, bum,
Yeah.
bum.
And maybe one day I'll learn.
That's how I feel when I have like a really good productivity day or a good dopamine day, and I'm like, I'm on it. I've beaten my ADHD. This is gonna be me for the rest of my life. I'm gonna be a productive Mary, and then the next day I'm like, I'm gonna sleep forever.
Yep.
Yeah, because your brain tricks itself in that moment, and it's just like, this is totally sustainable.
Right?
Like, I've got it. Yeah, I've hacked the system at last. I took the red pill. Like, we're in.
Yeah, it's very like now and not now, where whenever we have an emotion of positive or negative, it's like, this is how I'm going to feel for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I'm really big on when I know I'm feeling bad, acknowledging that those emotions are real, and enhanced because of my nervous system or hormones or whatever at the time. But I'm really big for like, turn off the phone, do not contact that person or whatever has triggered it, and sleep on it for 24 hours. I sleep on it. If it's been 24 hours and I'm still that pissed, then I'll take action, but never in the moment.
It's a really reasonable response.
Reasonable and restrained response.
Yes.
And 95% of the time, the next day, you're just like, pretty wild that I was upset about that.
That was nuts.
Can you believe that?
I really could not care less.
Yeah.
There you go. But then 5% of the time it is genuine. But you're able to like give yourself the space to think through, instead of like going on the offensive and going off at someone or damaging a relationship or, increasing my feelings, kind of just distilling it down to like, what was the issue? And, can you please, or whatever it is, putting in a structure to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
All right, as we're winding this first part of your interview down, we really want to hear about your best ADHD strengths, because I think that's important.
I think it's good to end on a good note.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate this.
Who could have foreseen this?
I think bum, 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 bum.
Cue the music.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Just checking the files. Well, I think I find it, I can talk to anyone about anything. Find it really easy to meet new people and find something in common. I find I'm a very good interviewer of people. And when my brain is on, I have a quick wit, which I really enjoy. I stay with puzzles for a lot longer than other people, which I think is a strength. I'll get there slower, but I'll always get there, and often with a better answer than others, I suppose. And I would be interested to know if other ADHDers share this, actually. I'm really not afraid of public speaking or crowds at all.
Don't relate.
In a way, the larger the crowd, the more comfortable I feel because the less real the situation feels. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I'm least comfortable presenting to a room with 12 to 15 people in it because there's just enough eyes on me that my brain goes into presentation mode, but there's enough space and enough engagement that those people I can read their responses to what's happening and they can ask questions. Whereas once you sort of get to the crowd size, it's like that crowd is now just non-people with eyes and you're doing your thing. And it's interesting with radio, it's very similar to this. I was very comfortable presenting on radio. I think I was more or less the youngest person in the state, maybe the country as far as I know, to have my own radio show. My mum had to come and sit with me for the first year.
Oh my God.
Really?
Because I wasn't old enough to legally be in the studio by myself.
Oh my God.
So she's dope. She did that. But because there were no faces, you forget that you're presenting to many thousands of people.
Yep.
Right? And so you just do your thing.
That's why we say so many embarrassing things. We forget people
I know,
will be
I forget
listening.
people until they
but
mention it.
But that's the beauty of it, because it's so intimate. If you think about that, you're deeper in people's homes and their lives and their realities than even some of their closest friends get. You know, if someone's listening to your voice while they're falling asleep or on a really hard day to cheer them up, maybe they're driving to a job interview and they're freaking out and your voices bring them comfort. It's actually really intimate and really powerful.
Really sweet.
And I think the fact that you forget that many people are listening is what gives the podcast its flavor, right? Because you're just listening to your mates. I'm sure lots of other listeners of your podcast would agree with that sentiment. Whereas I feel like you guys are my buddies.
We are.
But you really Chris, like you really know nothing about me, but I think you know my stories because I know your stories, but you don't. But in my head, that connection is reciprocal. And I can't be the only person who's had that experience.
I think people who've come, because I've had this I have a lot of coworkers or people at work who listen, and then they'll ask me a question about, like, the big one that happened was, like, when I shared that pizza secret about my cat eating all that meat and then us feeding the meat to the people
At the funeral.
at the funeral. They're like, you didn't really do that, right? That was just a bit. And I was like,
Totally.
no, I really did it. Yeah, no, it was. And then I shared it to God knows how many people. And I keep forgetting that.
I forgot about that one.
I keep forgetting that I shared that story. So I get why people don't want me to bring anything to a party.
Yeah.
But
It is kind of fun, though, that people will bring up things that we talked about.
What should I bring?
yeah,
Just yourself, honey. Just
Yeah,
yourself.
please.
You are the gift.
maybe napkins, but that's all.
That's all we trust you with.
Just honestly, they're not wrong. I mean, I get it.
It's
I
valid.
Get it. Yeah.
I forgot about
Yeah, but when
Catmate.
we're recording, it's just Grace and I, and we're just shooting the shit.
Being stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I agree. I do think it's good because, we go into that masking mode, I feel like, especially, I'm not super comfortable speaking in front of people. It's funny that we started a podcast.
Yeah.
But if I had to be up talking in front of people, I think I'd be a lot more self-conscious and thinking a lot more. I just saw someone on TikTok talking about how movies and everything, especially these days, are so bad because they're being made for what group of probably men at a board table like think the audience will want, as opposed to movies made in the past that were made for the artist. Like they were made because it's something that they enjoyed. They made it for themselves, and then other people fell in love with it. And I do think that is an important distinction, that we're not making this obviously to like get huge viewership or, you know, get certain ratings or have people think of us a certain way. Yeah, we're just having fun in a room.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You guys you got 2 strong female leads.
Hell yeah.
You are unconventional. Honestly, I was quickly trying to scroll through some of our conversations, Grace, because I'm like, oh, all my gold will be here. And I was just like, okay, this is just us complaining about capitalism. Yep, that's the patriarchy.
And it's nothing that we wouldn't talk about here. It's
like oppression, joke, oppression, joke, rage. And I was like, this might be not necessarily useful on the podcast, except it's very on topic. So maybe it would.
Yeah, we got a good balance.
Yeah, but we've got that in common. Yeah. Well, before you wrap up, I was going to say before, I did find my note of like the moment I fell in love with each of you as a listener.
God, share. Like, we could use the boost.
It was in the first episode with Grace when you were telling your ADHD story, which was much more eloquent and included better details than mine did. My bad. When you said that, your story was sort of, I was put in the gifted and talented class, but then I was actually struggling with some stuff, but then I didn't want anyone to know, and so I became a really great bullshitter, and I was like, oh my girl!
Yep.
Sister from another mister. And then so I was like locked into you from that moment. I was so excited. I was like, I know this story. It's so familiar.
Right?
And then Kristen, you're kind of adorable anyway. You are so much like one of my closest friends who is a gnome, the world's best smurf ally. She's so funny. Crazy funny. But the moment you really had me hooked was when you suggested denim furniture during your clam jail episode. I think I laughed until I couldn't breathe anymore. Yeah, and then you told your clam jail story, and I just like lost my mind. I was like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, completely hooked. Yeah. Because I started listening to you guys in between figuring out I had ADHD and getting the diagnosis, because the process takes about a year in Australia. And so in the meantime, I was just going on lots of real long walks, having a deep think about things. And so your podcast was really wonderful for me during that time, because I found that it was the only one I could find that wasn't just taking everything so seriously. And it was just nice to be able to giggle about how ridiculous this whole thing is, and then not feel like I was being silly or immature for something that seems legitimately hilarious to me. And I just feel like the moment you lose your childish sense of humor is the moment, like, you know, you're just one step aside from death.
Yeah, what's the point?
Right? I don't think we could be serious if we tried.
No, and I've tried. It doesn't work.
There's a place for earnestness. I don't think in day-to-day life, when day-to-day life is like trickier than it needs to be. You know?
Yeah, we do make it a lot
harder. Gotta be able to.
Than it has to be.
Yeah, one of those fun little quirks.
Yeah.
Well, life on hard.
We're honored and we're flattered, and we're so glad we could be there for you during that tumultuous time of self-discovery.
Yeah, and we're happy that you're here with us now.
And we've become friends.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, lucky me. Yeah, thanks heaps for having me. This is exciting. I can't wait to get into quirks.
Yeah,
quirks. Do you have them?
Yeah. Yes, we do. All right. This has been part 1 of the Enya episode. Thank you for listening. We will be back next week with part 2 of Enya's episode. We're doing silly segs, so definitely tune in for that. And you're looking at me like I should be saying something.
No, I just realized that we say the bot after.
Yeah, you always try to say it first.
I just always try to say it first because
no,
I don't know what we're doing in the show. Apparently,
you never do.
I never do.
2 years in. Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you, do you have any like links or anything where you want people to find you, social media or whatever, or should they just like filter their comments and questions through us?
Yeah, I'm not fussed. I have plans to start doing comedy coastal education video shorts, but I might never do that. So in general, people can look me up on social media if they like. It's going to be mostly little short videos of people getting slammed. I really get a lot of pleasure watching people have accidents. It's so funny to me.
So if you got me following Kook Slams.
Yeah. Kook Slam's hard. Yeah. So it's Enya's Down the Beach on Instagram, and then Enya Chitty, Chitty, like the car, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang on Facebook and LinkedIn. Though I don't know that unless there's randomly a coastal scientist listening who has a job to offer, I don't see how LinkedIn would actually
You never know. Putting it out there.
There's a coastal scientist right now who's like, we've got her.
Yes, this is the answer.
This is it.
Yeah, go check her out. Let her know if you resonated with her episode. And if you have any questions or comments and you want to send them to us or have us pass along the message to Enya, you can at weirdsofafeather@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at weirdsofafeather. You can join our Facebook group. You can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/weirdsofafeather, and that money just goes towards keeping the podcast alive. And I think that's it. And it's time for the bod? Yeah?
Yes. We do have a bod. I want your bod.
Nice bod.
Oh.
It is.
Be careful what you wish.
It's a bird with a name that says it all. It's a yellow-tailed black cockatoo. That's exactly what it is. It's a bird. It's a cockatoo with a yellow tail and a black bod.
Yep.
You guys Google that one from Kangaroo Island?
Is it from Kangaroo Island?
We
did
we wanted to do another silly Australian bird.
Yeah.
You guys have plenty.
Yeah, they're amazing. I call them my uncles and aunties. Oh. They have the most beautiful call. And we also have a really rare black cockatoo over here, the red-tailed black cockatoo, that sounds like a goat dying.
Oh.
So the yellowtails were the nicer choice. Yeah, they're really endangered. One of my besties runs their rehab program. It's really cool. But yes, please play.
All right, imitate this call.
Hopefully you can hear this.
Oh, this is going to be terrible. I see why this is frustrating for you guys.
Right? That was better than I was going to do. It's kind of like a squeaky horse.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's better.
Yeah, very good.
Oh my God. Yellowtail black cockatoos here.
Yeah, are they in the room with us?
They hang out in these groups, and I think they live to be really old, like 80, 90 years old.
Oh my God.
And then you won't realize that they're munching on nuts and stuff. You ride your bike through, and they go, and they're like the whole canopy comes alive, and then you hear them talking to the other birds. The hardest thing is like you'll have a fruit tree and it'll start fruiting, and then you see them fly over and do a lap and sit on it and have a look around. You're like, great, they've clocked the apricots. Like that's they know, you know that they're like mapping the food source. One of them's like testing it and she's like, yeah, boys, that's 3 weeks off. And they like eyeball you and they're like, we'll be back to destroy your apricot trees.
Well, you know what? I just realized I didn't have a fun fact for them. So thank you for those fun facts.
Yeah, thank you for those fun facts.
That worked out well.
Oh, yeah, no worries. They're beautiful. They're a lot bigger than you think they're going to be. Really, really clever. And I swear to God, they've got a whole language. I swear it must be more sophisticated than human language. You can tell they're having really in-depth conversations when they're talking to each other. It's pretty amazing stuff.
I love a bird.
Yeah.
All right.
So do I.
Okay. Bye.